Restart. This is a continuation of hypochondriasis and a reconsideration of the British National Health Service. And actually, I touched the screen last time and then I restarted, and the owner finally came in at like 9 o'clock on part one. I'm telling you about how the hypochondriac clinic a couple building over works. There's really not a real clinic. They don't do samples. They don't have a lab courier pickup, on a daily basis. They're open all the time. They have doctors that are out of system. That means, almost like they're doing that deliberately to generate cash. They have a huge staff. I think, I'm talking about at least 18 people or 20 people, not counting custodial or something. They can't, it's got to be more than that. It's because they operate 7 days a week. They're operating today on Thanksgiving Day. I'll try to conclude this in a few minutes. And my point really is that I'm good at diagnosing things. And a lot of this this ability to diagnose what other doctors can't comes from firsthand experience and doing the necessary testing to find out what the real source of the problem was. Because sometimes doctors, that's why they have the term idiopathic, is actually just means they don't know. They have all terms that are meant to bullshit patients when they just really don't know that it's, they don't want to admit that, anyway, it's too long. I don't want to go too long here. I'm fatigued. And I want to make a critical statement here. When the door lock clicked open and stuff, I looked out and I saw that there were several hypochondriacs waiting for the door to open. Because ordinarily it would open about 5 minutes before 7. Still, no appointments. I'm reiterating. I have to reiterate to tie you back get you to watch the previous video. I also had like about 50 gigs. My memory was actually pretty much burnt out. But it was actually me touching the screen that stopped it. I've really reconsidered this because I've had long conversations with people in England and shit, and I'm really not believing the criticisms of the British, National Health Service, because even compared to Canada's health service, mostly they come to America because they have the money to, and we have a reputation of having the best doctors. How much of that reputation is real and how much of it is Madison Avenue? Like I was telling you last video, never read the 5-star reviews. Only read the critical reviews, but then you yourself have to have the skills like me to tell which is a true, honest, negative criticism with sufficient supporting facts, or whether you just got some trailer park or ghetto trash smack talking somebody who didn't give them some dope. It's a complicated subject. But now I'm going to give you my expert analysis on the first case that walked in the door. Was rich mommy who had been sitting there for probably half an hour with her little angel, who she obviously allowed to bloat herself last night. And little angel probably didn't have, I'm certain, little angel, slender little beautiful little angel, her little precious darling, didn't have a morning bowel movement. That's because one of the first symptoms of the GMO poisoning and the vegetable oil poisoning is a thing called spastic colon was my first symptom, first diagnosis when they couldn't figure out. The only thing came close to fitting it was this thing where you're kind of like your sigmoid colon stops working, the sphincters don't work well, and that's a reaction to the vegetable oils and GMO toxins, everything. And then it really gets worse because this slender young girl who was walking fine and holding mommy's hand, but technically actually dragging mommy like an eager dog to get into that clinic and have the doctor's attention. Her tummy looked like she was a malnourished African baby. That kid had been allowed to gorge, and the mother wasn't smart enough to give her a little dose of Miralax and her, here's some hot cocoa, honey, and put a few heaping tablespoons of Miralax in with that hot cocoa before she went to bed, or some Senna or something like that that's actually will clean the child out in the morning and overcome it's. I can't think of any. Senna could be slow. I still would probably recommend Miralax. I'm not totally up on Miralax, but I know that Miralax and the child would eat. If the child had some actual, bellyache, they are not clean for imaging. You get my drift? Doctor here, the real doctor. If you bring in a child that's bloated with food and all this stuff, and their only really complaint is that, Mommy, I didn't drop a deuce, and I don't feel good because look at my tummy. And gosh, my mother she knew a lot of the old. I just couldn't believe it. The kid was obviously strong, healthy, breathing fine, looked fine, everything, color was fine, eyes were fine, tracking was fine, everything. All initial diagnostics from watching them approach and stuff like that was because a lot of people began their feasting, as I said last night. The dinner that was brought to me last night was because they already had their Thanksgiving. And today, a lot of people have to go to 2 or 3 Thanksgivings and continue the gorging of frankenfoods. So, like I said, I've heard all these complaints about the British Health Service, and I've actually examined, and know that, the Russian system was really messed up. But, I've heard these awful, god-awful tales actually published by people. That's because they're doing a very rigid triage, looking for hypochondriacs that are there just to eat up, consume resources. And the best I can find is only really a few cases per year where that person continues on with their bad habits. They don't figure it out on their own, and it somehow progresses into something worse. So, in this, as I've called for in social media before, I don't care if you're left or right, people in this country who are actually ill or injured or being neglected until they die, not knowing that Medicaid will actually pick it up if you don't have the money to pay. Dumbasses. You just refuse to pay the hospital system. Go in, they'll treat you. You get treated in this country. We're treating I don't know how many thousands of illegal immigrants a year for free on the tax. And you think they're ever going to pay anything? No, we don't. The American health system, as incompetent as is, I should say as unknowledgeable as is, still makes it incompetent, still doesn't really refuse to treat anybody. But one of the biggest problems is you have to hire extra staff called billing clerks who have to learn every year the new, my physician told me 20 some odd years ago that the coding book, if they pay the American Medical Association $1 billion a year out of to come up with that cooperation and billing codes with the insurance people. See, if you don't properly code the billing, you're not going to get paid. And still, even then, There's the denial officers to increase the profit margin of the insurance companies. We have to move to a single payer system. I don't have the appropriate answer now. I'm just telling you, we've got to do that to begin the triage against hypochondriasis. It's not that you're like crazy. Some of you are. You believe that every little pimple or stuff you have, you got to run to a doctor. Oh, doctor, I have skin cancer. I suntan a lot, but I use SPF. And all this. Hypochondriasis is somebody who's obsessed with their health. They talk about healthy eating, and yet they eat the most toxic shit on earth. Vegetable material, vegetable oils are toxic as shit. And they'll still pop them fucking COX-1, COX-2 inhibitors or Tylenol or something. They're still, and oh gosh, they eat like vegan Mexican food or stuff like that, or they eat garlic like crazy. Garlic's good for you. No, it's not. It's a lethal poison. The population is always going to be stupid, young and stupid on the whole. Most of y'all are not going to make it to my age, especially now. But the American diet is something. In other countries, they don't even permit the import of any kind of GMOs because of the legal issues, just the legal issues of patent infringement and Monsanto being able to come in and kill your crop in a foreign country. Pretty sure that's true. I'm pretty sure they have, wherever Monsanto's going to be selling it, they have an agent. There it goes out and it can walk into anybody's field and temporarily trespass because they're going to keep a record of people who purchase their seeds, and they're going to watch for blowover in the neighboring fields, and they can come destroy your crop that tests positive for their patented product. But we really have to slow down. There needs to be a real discussion about hypochondriasis and what it really is. It's not just imaginary diseases. It's this preoccupation with one's health that's really always existed in America, but has been used as a merchandising tool for many decades now. Jack LaLanne, the Jack LaLanne juicer, which actually extracts the poisons too, but just all this selling of junk, garbage, shit that's cheap to make, and use vegetable products and other things that formerly were trash and not consumed by anybody because humans knew they were toxic. Nobody ate cottonseed oil. Cottonseed was fed to steers. They were already castrated because my father and his generation and my generation know that if you feed cottonseed to a bull, he's gonna, I'm sure it's the same for soybean. He's gonna stop mating. He's gonna go impotent. So I've spoken to too many Englishmen and women that have actually been seriously ill or injured and praised the National Health Service for saving their life. And I've heard of the accounts of the whiners who I can tell they're leaving out the fact that they continued on with bad habits and something progressed. And occasionally in triage, you might miss something that's really hidden. And delay imaging trying to discourage hypochondriasis. A few people will die as a result of a real heavy triage, but that's the only way we're going to bring down the price of medical care in this country to where it's affordable to taxpayers, and where the people who are truly ill get the treatment that they need. In these rich, healthy, 98% of the people that have walked into and out of that clinic were absolutely in no need of medical attention. The fact that they don't keep really any medications inside that facility, none that would be urgently needed upon diagnosis. Well, but then over 4 months, only seen an ambulance come there once, and that ambulance took its dear sweet time because the doctor told them, yeah, they're bullshitting us, both two is fine because you can actually operate just fine on very low oxygen levels. I mentally outperformed a team of 6 doctors and then more and more after that for months, for almost, well, actually for at least 6 weeks. I had trouble even with pure oxygen. They weren't doing free flow oxygen, which is, I was usually around 80 to 82. So you freaking hypochondriacs that are overinsured and you're actually healthy and stuff, just because you can afford it doesn't mean you should use it. You need to have a little consideration and let your insurance money go to those who actually freaking need it. You need to learn there needs to be like a council that recommends, may have mentioned in the last video, one before that, of these common treatments and stuff that I've used or have since been approved by the AMA that one guy actually told me you can't pour vinegar in the ear. It's an acid. Please. All old doctors go before that he's going to write a prescription for Ciprodex. If you actually show signs of real serious inflammation or possible infection, you're going to get a mixture of Cipro and dexamethasone. That costs a lot of money, and your copay is going to be high on your insurance because they're there to milk you, when you should have, before even going to the doctor, start pouring white distilled vinegar, about 7% is what it usually is, acetic acid. And, I'd fill up the ear and let it rest. I'd even try to see if it can get into the eustachian tube, and then pour it out 10 times, because unless you go into a walk-in emergency, no appointments necessary because we don't make appointments, hypochondriac clinic, if you don't do that for like the day, if you don't put vinegar in your ear about 10 times one day, and then when you have your appointment the next day, you suddenly realize you don't need it, and then you can cancel it. I absolutely will not tolerate the presence of hypochondriacs around me. Endless talk. I do it, but I'm not talking about healthy eating. I really can't tell them hardly what to eat now. There's so little choice. It's not toxic. Yes. I love chicken, but I can tell that sometimes that some of those toxins are building up in chicken fat. Beef, bananas, it's really I don't really recommend. I just try to tell people what the fuck to avoid, which a lot of times it's what some health expert or dietitian told them to eat for their health. You see where I'm coming from? I've now made like over 25-minute video about the fact that the first persons walking into that was a helicopter mom and a slender little girl who was just clearly bloated from gluttony and was reacting to the toxins that she ate, and her sigmoid colon was not functioning and her sphincters weren't functioning. She didn't have a good blast out cannon butt this morning. And mama didn't know to give her a little dose of black draft, Senna, or a little Senna, or just put some Miralax in her nighttime. You want a little chocolate, honey, before you go to bed? And that hot chocolate should be full of Miralax. I'm sorry, I have watched that clinic milk all these attention needing, overinsured people. I've read the complaints about the out-of-system doctors. I've checked it all out. I know what's going on over there. They're catering to the hypochondriac crowd who simply don't know that. And I could talk for another hour on this subject. The conclusion is There must be health reform in this country. The stock market, where you put your money, the insurance companies where you put your money. That need to be maybe one insurance company, and it needs to be, okay, private, but it's going to be a private non-profit where the executives get paid good salaries only for doing precision triage. That's my proposal. Have a happy day of gluttony, as you have to go to 2 or 3 different families after your family had Thanksgiving last night. You have to go to her family and then to your sister's gluttony is one of the 7 deadly sins, and today is the festival of gluttony. Avarice is one of the 7 deadly sins, and yet next month the Christians are going to celebrate the birth of Christ, which actually happened in the spring. They're going to celebrate the Saturnalian, I think that is, around the winter equinox. Winter equinox. I'm getting this right. Yeah. Whatever. And Santa Claus is actually a Nordic pagan festival. It's nothing to do with Christianity. He's a straight up commie, dressed in red, going around giving away free stuff, all under the forced labor of the Elves Union. Yeah, I'm on to you, Santa Claus. Bah humbug, motherfuckers. I understand that this is a time of year where a vast majority of businesses, this is where they actually finally make their profit. Is they actually started long before Thanksgiving, and it'll go until December 31st is when they actually go into next, because the fiscal years are different. But 'tis the season for gluttony and avarice. And you hypochondriacs, you really need a good talking to. Now let's see if I have enough battery left to upload this, and I won't tell you, I don't tolerate. That's one of the things about Melissa. Hypochondriac. Possible delusional disorder, too. And concealed carry. A little erratic in her behavior. She's the one who tried to convert a Jew by text, beginning with text. Okay. There needs to be, and I don't see it really coming, there needs to be an age of enlightenment in this country where the public schools actually talk about real history, about the actual benefits of religion and stuff. And there's a whole lot of other, and they need to learn about hypochondriasis, and they need to, as children, they need to be told that you can't really believe. There needs to be somebody in, but like I said, here comes that problem, that stumbling block again. It kind of almost nebulous, unidentified, can't quite pin them down because they range from the ultra rich to the average working Joe who's got some money to invest, or pension funds that invest. I will finish with this. On Facebook, when I hooked up with my California high school classmates and stuff, they're going like, Kent, why does gasoline cost so much? Because they knew I was an oil and gas producer. And, because they're paying like $5 a gallon and shit. I said, well, you may not have noticed that your pension fund, the California Teachers Pension Fund, which is a different subsection under CalPERS or whatever, it was your pension fund that bid the price of oil and gas up to the all-time record of $154 a barrel. So really, when you're at the pump, don't be bitching about me. Try to understand that the money that you're putting into the pump is actually going into your pension fund. Do you understand now? Because many of my schoolmates became teachers because they kind of have, they love to be around children. They have kind of a pedophilic. They just can't get past, high school or kind of thinking. And they just love the easy life of being a teacher. And they probably sit around bitching about their wages and stuff when they're actually rich from inheritance and they married some rich man or woman. So please, the hypochondriasis in this country, there needs to be a national debate about hypochondriacs and the health movement and how full of bull. I wish there were a powerful enough entity, a well-funded enough entity to go out there and use the knowledge that I have, that others, many others have, to bring down and just sue out of existence all the false claims made by health experts and dietitians and nutritionists who are not really competent, don't know anything about toxicology. So that's it. This will be a total of over 30 minutes. I don't give a shit. Simple minds make short. It's all good. No, it's not. Sometimes it takes a half an hour to an hour or 90 minutes to explain the fact that, no, in fact, it's not all good. I hate shit like that. It's just this whole, YOLO, baby. Okay. It's all good. I ain't buying it. And you're not my brother. You're my distant cousin.